This is Hannibal here from the Hannibal TV.com, and we are live with my first SWE Fury related interview. And they have a huge show coming up December 12th in Greenville, Texas. It's a CW network TV taping, and the man I'm talking to now is one of the top contenders for the SWE Fury heavyweight title, currently held by Tim Storm, the former NWA world champion. Supertex, Brent McKenzie, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me on. I've been looking forward to this all week and ready to get into it, man.
Excellent. Well, let's start it off. You're the number one contender for this company. For those that don't know about SWE Fury, Teddy Long's involved with it. Kevin Sullivan is now involved behind the scenes. Mark Henry's coming to the next show. There's a lot of former WWE stars coming in and out of there. Jazz, Rodney Mack are involved behind the scenes too. Could you tell the fans a little bit about SWE Fury?
The SWE Fury, I came on board about a year and a half ago, and I was approached by James Beard, of all people, to be a part of the show. And the company itself has been gaining a lot of traction and a lot of steam over that time, and have been picking up TV deals left and right with the CW network. It's on CW San Antonio, CW East Texas, out in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and the CW DFW, CFW 33 for Dallas Fort Worth. It's a really good company, a lot of great talent, and like you said, Teddy Long is involved. He's a WWE Hall of Famer. They're bringing in Mark Henry, another WWE Hall of Famer. We've got the Taskmaster Kevin Sullivan, of course, and he's just a legendary mind in the wrestling business as a whole. You mentioned Jazz and Rodney Mack. Another a former WWE star is Charlie Haas. He's come on board with the company. He was actually at the last set of tapings in San Antonio. A plethora of great talent. The former NWA World's Champion Tim Storm, former NWA World's Champion Jax Dane. It's just a crazy amount of great talent that are a part of the SWE, and a lot of that is credit due to guys like Tom Lance, the owner of SWE, Jason Jarrett, James Beard, and a host of other people who've been behind the scenes making this company work and really trying to get us out there for a lot of eyes to see.
And Tom Lance, speaking of him, he's worked out something with the Hannibal TV where we're going to be posting a lot of the SWE Fury matches. I've already posted 2 female matches from the last event, and probably in the next 2 weeks, your last match with Tim Storm is probably going to be on the channel. And I glanced through it, and it looks like you guys have a serious feud going here. I mean,
yeah, it's been going now for over a year. Tim Storm has been a thorn in my side. The whole damn company has been a thorn in my side, really, if you want to put it that way. I've been trying my damnedest to get a title shot against Tim Storm, and it was just another obstacle put in front of me after another obstacle after another obstacle, whether it had been from James Beard, who finally took a step back, and then they brought in Teddy Long, and they brought him in with Road Warrior Animal, God rest his soul. But Teddy Long proceeded to put obstacle after obstacle after obstacle in front of me, and for the longest, I was undefeated in SWE. Actually, I still am undefeated in SWE. I have not been pinned. I have not been submitted for an actual official count. So by all rights, I am the number one contender, and I want that SWE Fury Heavyweight Championship. And Tim Storm happens to be the man that's holding it. So Tim Storm is in my crosshairs.
You have a fan here, Furman Perez, saying that you are going to be the future SWE champion. So even though you're on the heel side, you do have some fans. You do have a manager too that's definitely an attractive woman. You want to tell us a bit about her?
So she's actually not my manager. In other promotions, her name is Machiko, and she's actually a wrestler herself. She's actually one of my tag team partners in a group that we call Down to Fight. Well, it was a group. I guess it's just me and her. We've had one of our guys retire, and then another one we won't mention. Look at there. My cat hates Supertex. That would be Rufus.
Very aggressive. I guess she comes after you.
They get it from me. They get it from me. This is Rufus, everybody. He's a butthead. Say hello, Rufus, and I'll go away. That's pretty nice. Anyway,
maybe you and Ted Hart should be having a match once he gets out of jail. I think he's in Texas jail right now.
He's actually out. Don't get me started on Ted Hart. Don't start it.
Let's hear Ted Hart to digress.
Oh man, that's something I don't want to go into. That's something I don't want to go into.
It's safe to say he's probably not going to be at this SWE Fury event coming up December.
For his sake, better not be. Like that's. I don't believe he's in Texas any longer. I know he was released from jail, but I don't believe he's in Texas at the moment. And it would be wise of him to stay away from any wrestling shows. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I do. Your tag team partner, your cat interrupted us.
Yeah, Machiko. She's been a member of the group Down to Fight with me for the last 3 years now, and she and I are as thick as thieves. We're best friends. I love her to death, and she's a part of SWE as well. It's just we haven't crossed paths in SWE just yet, and hopefully someday soon we will. And I'll have her on my side, of course. But she's a heck of a wrestler. She's been all over the country. She's actually wrestled in the United Kingdom a couple times this past year. Of course, she was scheduled to go back, and then COVID, of course, took place and put that on the back burner for a little bit. But she's got a bright future ahead of her for sure.
Now, I noticed, of course, you guys have crowds back. They're wearing masks and so forth. How long has Texas allowed wrestling with crowds for?
Man, so for the longest, Texas had a hold on the sporting events. You couldn't go to that, and I think it was just a couple of months into the lockdown. It might have been 2 or 3 months. And we were able to finally start having events again at a limited capacity. And as long as people were wearing masks and they were socially distancing, then you could move forward with those events. And for the most part, we've done a pretty good job of getting people in there and adhering to those types of regulations and just getting back to entertaining people, which I think is what's most important in times like these that are just as trying as they are on people. And is being able to entertain people, giving people a release from just the daily toll of life at this point. So I look forward to us hopefully with the vaccine coming that we'll be able to go back to a full capacity and not have any restrictions or regulations placed on us and getting back to full crowds and having that once again, because there's nothing like a live crowd just being as loud as possible and you going out there and putting on a hell of a show for them. So I look forward to that day, and hopefully soon.
You mentioned Road Warrior Animal was on the last event. I was social media friends with him, and I remember him promoting SWE Fury a lot. Did you have much contact with him over the years?
Did you say with Animal?
Yeah, with Animal, not even necessarily in SWE Fury.
No. So the first time I met Animal was when they brought him into the set of tapings for in Plano, and he was brought in to be the enforcer for Teddy Long, and actually the enforcer was to keep me in line. But that was the first time I really got to meet him. And started working with him from then on. And unfortunately, we didn't have a very long time with one another. And he passed just a couple of months ago. And there were big plans to have him involved in the company moving forward and in whatever angle I was working in moving forward with him being the enforcer for Teddy. He gave me some great advice. He had some very, very, very high praise for me. At the last set of tapings we did, which was in Canton, Texas, that he was a part of, the last set of tapings that Animal was with us for, and he pulled me aside before I actually went out and had a promo with Tim, and he gave me some really high praise, and it's something that'll stick with me for the rest of my life, and it's for as long as I'm wrestling for sure. But I know we miss him. He was that was a huge hole to fill when Animal passed, and we just unfortunately you just got to keep moving forward, and life goes on, but you don't want to ever forget someone like that, especially someone who meant as much as he did to the business, being a part of the Road Warriors. But he was just a hell of a guy, man. Super nice guy in the back. Would critique your matches and you ask him, hey, what do you think of this? And he'd give you his thoughts on it, and at point blank. And he wouldn't sugarcoat anything, and that's for the best. But we miss having him around for sure. And I know his family, his wife Kim, and his daughter and his son-in-law wrestled on the last set of tapings that we did in the Colony at Lava Cantina. So their family has become a part of the SWE family, and we look forward to having them back at this next set of tapings in Greenville. So, but much love to the Lawrence family.
Aiden wants to know if you've ever wrestled in Australia. He's watching from over there.
I have not. I would love to. I would love to go to Australia in general, just not just for wrestling, but I mean, if wrestling is involved, then that's a bonus for sure. I ran a company with my great friend Aaron Presley. It was called 360 Pro Wrestling. We've actually got plans to get that back up and running, and we actually used a couple of talents from Australia. And they had come in and done a loop for us. We were part of the NWA at the time, and they were working a lot of the NWA affiliates. And man, I would love to go. I've always had an affinity for Australia, and I would love to go there for sure.
Now, I'm going to assume you probably grew up in Texas. Any memories of Texas wrestling growing up?
With Texas wrestling, especially stuff like the Von Erichs and World Class and GWF and stuff like that, was a little bit before I actually got into wrestling. I really didn't become a huge fan of wrestling until about 96, 97. So it was more or less, for me, it was WCW and WWF at the time. But now that I've been in wrestling for as long as I have, and I was such a fan of wrestling for a long time before even becoming a wrestler, of course I went back and I learned about all of that, and became a huge fan of what World Class did. And I have no doubts that World Class was some of the hardest hitting pure professional wrestling that I've ever seen. And that's why it was as popular as it was, because it was as real could get. And the people in the Dallas area or Texas in general believed it, and it's because they gave you something to believe at World Class. But a huge fan of that stuff now, and a lot of the guys that are huge names now and went on to WWF or WCW. They came up in the business in Texas. You got guys like Mick Foley, Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels down at Southwest with the Blanchards. Undertaker, they got their start in Texas, and Texas is such a huge melting pot for professional wrestling talent, and you're seeing a big resurgence of that with a lot of the talent that's coming up. Roddy Mack and Jazz have the Dog Pound Pro Wrestling School, or dojo rather, Dog Pound Pro Wrestling Dojo, and they are producing a lot of great talent, and especially the women, folks like Vert Vixen. You've got Jasmine Allure. A plethora of other women that are really becoming super strong talents and really good, and they're really enjoyable to watch. And it's not like watching women's wrestling from 10 years ago. These women are going out and beating each other's asses, and it's refreshing to see.
Yeah,
so,
I agree with you on that, because I edited those 2 women's matches, and I usually don't really like editing girls' matches. But I found that they were actually going at it, so it was refreshing. Yeah.
And for the longest, I wasn't a huge fan of women's wrestling, because either it was really, really good or it was really bad. Now it's getting to where nearly all of it is really, really good, and I'm finally coming around to becoming a huge fan of it, because these girls are going out there and busting ass for sure.
I think you have a big fan here. Furman Perez says you're helping keep Texas wrestling history alive and well. I like that SWE encourages that hard-hitting style of wrestling. Now with WWE reportedly maybe cutting out house shows altogether or just doing them here and there, do you think a big state like Texas with strong TV like SWE Fury has could potentially eventually develop into its own territory?
Absolutely, and I think that's really the plan, especially with the TV markets that we have. So we could theoretically go and do a 4 or 5 day loop and hit these towns and run a show every night, and then just keep doing it again, just like the old territory system did. I would welcome it, and I think a lot of the fans would welcome it. And with the TV being the way it is, I think that's a real possibility, and I think it could happen for sure.
And as far as your professional wrestling training, who trained you and what made you want to become a wrestler?
So what made me become a wrestler, I was, like I said, I was a fan of it from 96, 97 on. I was drawn to the athleticism more so than anything else, more than the stories or the angles that they were running. I was drawn to how in the hell were these guys going out there and punishing their bodies each and every night, and I wanted to try to understand it. So I was really more or less watching wrestling from a scientific standpoint than I was more so from an entertainment aspect. How I got into wrestling, I had a friend of mine who knew someone who was training at a school in Central Texas, and I say school very loosely. I got in touch with him, and they invited me out to go check out the wrestling ring, basically. And it happened to be in somebody's horse corral outside of a barn in the middle of nowhere. So I went and met the guy that was running it, and he was a big con artist, huge carny. And I kind of saw through what he was doing. One of the guys that was training there, his name was Ryan Genesis. He went on to become a NWA tag team champion with Scott Summers as a part of the Kings of the Underground. He got in touch with me after I'd come out there and check it out, and he said, "Hey, I just bought a ring. I was getting screwed over by this guy that was running this place. Come check it out. See what you think." So I drove out to his place, and we started training out there 4 or 5 nights a week at his place, and we got hooked up with some guys in San Antonio. I won't say that I have a trainer per se. So it was more or less, hey, I met some guys who were training. They were learning from some other folks, and I started learning from them as well. And we ended up getting booked in San Antonio, and that kind of led to more and more bookings. And there was a company. It was a company in Temple, Texas. It was called New School Federation, which would eventually become NWA 360, and then I would gain ownership of 360 with my friend Aaron. And we continually ran shows for about 5 or 6 years. And it was just a lot of on-the-job training, learning from guys who had been around for a while. I can't say I have one particular trainer. I learned a lot from Charlie Haas. I wrestled him several times and did a couple of seminars with him. I also did a Les Thatcher seminar where I learned more in those 3 days than I had 6 months previously. So I credit a lot of people. I can't credit one person.
Now, I met Ryan at a Harley race camp maybe 4 years ago, and he's only gotten better since then, but I like his style too. He's known as Moonshine Mantell in SWE.
Moonshine Mantell, yeah. Ryan Mantell was one of my really good friends. We were in a tag team called the Sons of Texas for a long time, and we collected quite a few tag team championships in Texas. I know him very well. We were really close, and now we're on opposite ends of the spectrum in SWE. And whenever you're in the ring with someone like Moonshine Mantell, he brings it every single time. It's 110%, and he never stops. He's a guy that should be signed. Should have been signed a long time ago, to be honest with you. He's one hell of a talent and will take your head off and scar your chest up because he's an ass like that.
and he got injured in his match on the last event, and we're going to be posting that one too before December the 12th. You have a fan here from Norway that says they're going to be checking SWE out. Time to bring some balls back in to pro wrestling, and he also loves Texas. Joshua has a comment, and Furman says one of the best matches he's seen was you and Scott Summers in a dog collar match. Any memories of that?
Oh yeah, vivid memories of that match against Scott Summers. Scott Summers was kind of an independent wrestling icon here in Texas for a long time, and just a psychopath in general. And he's now one of my best friends. Consider him as close as a brother. But we beat the ever loving hell out of each other in that dog collar match, and that was back in 2014 for 360. He actually made me pass out, so he beat me in that one. Wrapped the chain around my face and had me in a crossface, and I succumbed to that hold, and he was awarded the 360 heavyweight championship that night. I would gladly do it again. I don't know if Scott's wrestling a whole lot now, but man, hell of a talent, hell of a guy. Can absolutely go.
Someone says you look like a southern version of Bam Bam.
I get that a lot. I pattern a lot of what I do after Bam Bam, so I'll take that as a compliment for sure. I know Rudy Boy Gonzalez posted about our interview here, and he said I was kind of a mix between Vader, Bam Bam, Hansen, and have a bit of a Gordy attitude. So I totally agree with that. I can't take too much of the Gordy attitude because we've got the daughter of Terry Gordy on our SWE shows, and that's Miranda, and she definitely has her daddy's attitude.
Yes, actually, she was the most hard-hitting of all the girls I've seen in SWE Fury so far. I haven't posted her match yet, but I was impressed.
Yeah, and the thing about Miranda hasn't been doing it very long, and so she's still a little green, but man, she goes and she will lay it in. And if your last name's Gordy, you better lay it in. And she does a damn good job of doing that, and that's evident by her being the SWE Fury Women's Champion.
Her brother didn't quite have the same fury that she has, though, because he competed in WWE for a while, but not under the Gordy name.
Right.
Maybe that was why he was. I forget what the gimmick was.
He was the Executioner.
Yeah. Oh no, but I mean the daughter, or sorry, the son.
Oh, son. That was he was with Festus.
Yes.
Gosh dang it, I can't think of what they called him. What his name was up there, but he was with Luke Gallows, Festus. Gosh dang it! All I remember is the Biscuits and Gravy song. That's all.
And then he went on to some type of rap character, which I don't. Remember. But he's a cop now, from what I understand.
I think it's Sheriff's Department or something like that is what I've read. But no, he was. He's a heck of a talent too. It's just I feel like he kind of got pigeonholed into a weird gimmick, and it just never kind of worked out for him like it should have. But
he didn't have the size blessing either.
That's looking at him and then looking at who his dad was, you think, man, wait a minute, he should be bigger.
The fans are helping us out here. He was Jesse, then he was Slam Master J.
Right. That's right, Jesse, then Slam Master J. I want to give a shout out to Furman. He's been commenting quite a bit here, and he actually has a page on Facebook. It's called Texas Wrestling Review, and he covers a lot of the Texas events and does a great job of putting each show over. And he's been documenting a lot of the stuff at the Dog Pound Dojo, and giving an eye to a lot of what's going on here in Texas. So huge props to Furman. Thank you, buddy.
There's another fan on here that hadn't heard of 360 Pro Wrestling before. They want to look into it more. Where can people find out more about 360?
So 360 Pro Wrestling on Facebook. It's been kind of dormant for a while. It was it was inactive for a few years, and now we're putting some pieces back together, and we've got a lot of big things planned. So just be on the lookout for that. You can like the page there on Facebook. It's 360 Pro Wrestling. The 360 name comes from Ryan Genesis. He was originally from the Seattle area, and their area code in Seattle is 360. So we thought we were switching it from New School Federation to a new name, and he was wondering what he could come up with, what would sound cool, and I go, well, what's your area code? And he's like 360, and I go, well, it's 360. It's a full circle, and so why not just go with that? We just call it 360 Pro Wrestling, and at that time we were joining the NWA, so it was NWA 360, and then when the NWA fell apart and Billy Corgan bought it, of course all the affiliates were done away with, and so now it's just 360 Pro Wrestling, and I'm really looking forward to getting back to promoting shows and booking shows and putting on events, because it's not just shows that we're going to do, it's events, and they're going to be large scale, and they're going to be, production is going to be top quality, so it's something to really look forward to. So be on the lookout for it.
Josh wants to follow up to say his Bam Bam comment was a compliment.
I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Is there any famous wrestlers other than Tim Storm that you've worked with that fans outside of Texas would know?
Charlie Haas, of course. Rodney Mack, I've wrestled several times. Funaki, I've wrestled on a couple of occasions. Scotty Too Hottie. I've worked with a lot of folks that are well known in the wrestling world. Chase Stevens, who was a part of TNA for a while, and he was a 3-time World Tag Team Champion there. I've wrestled him a handful of times, and really I've lost count how many times I've wrestled Chase, and I learned a lot from him as well. And that was early on in my career. But Chase Stevens is another guy I give a lot of credit to for helping me out and teaching me a lot of stuff. So.
Apparently, you also fought Eric from Viking Raiders, aka Ray.
Yeah, that's enough right there. It's Ray Rowe. Ray Rowe gave me one of my favorite matches I've ever had, and that was for NWA Houston. It was a lumberjack match, and it's one of my favorite matches. And coincidentally, Kevin Sullivan was there that night, helping out with the show, and he'd come in and made an appearance. And this was back in 2013, I think, so about 7 years ago. And Ray and I had just gotten done with our match, and I had come through the curtain. I'd gone through the curtain, and here came Ray right after me. And Kevin pulled us aside, and he said, "Boys," he says, "before tonight, I thought professional wrestling was dead. You proved me wrong." And you can find that match on YouTube if you look up NWA Houston, Ray Rowe, Brent McKenzie lumberjack match. It's on there, and it's one of my favorites, and it holds a close place to my heart because I love Ray so much. Ray's such a good dude, and I'm really proud of all the stuff that he's accomplished with his career in WWE, his career in wrestling in general, because he's done a lot with Ring of Honor and New Japan and held titles everywhere he's gone. So Ray's a good dude, and he deserves it for sure. Definitely had fun working.
And Kevin Sullivan, starting this December 12th show, he's going to actually be one of the commentators for SWE. And I can't ever remember him doing commentary before, so that should be very interesting. And he's also going to be helping out behind the scenes with all of his knowledge. He was, of course, booking WCW.
Yes,
when they were kicking WWE's ass.
Yeah.
So that should be a helpful thing for the company for sure.
Absolutely. It's a real blessing for the company in general to have someone like Kevin Sullivan there to give us ideas and for us to bounce ideas off of him and see what he thinks of those and really just give us some general direction for a lot of the guys who are greener and haven't been doing it very long. It's such a gift to have someone like that on the show. So it's going to help us grow leaps and bounds and really, I think, bring some more eyes to the product because we've got such a well-known name being associated with it. Not just Kevin. I think Teddy Long being a part of it, Mark Henry coming in, those types of guys really brings brings a lot of eyes to the product, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where we go from here.
And Mark Henry, of course, is also a WWE talent scout, so that should also be good for the people that are almost ready to make the jump, like the Ryan Genesis is, who's known as Moonshine Mantell there. But I believe some of those girls that I've seen just in those 4 matches from your last show, I could see them getting picked up in the future.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think it'll take very long for a lot of those girls to get there, get the opportunity to go even try out. I think it speaks to the people putting stuff in place for us at SWE, because there's so much really good talent. And another guy that I didn't mention just yet is our TV champion at SWE, and that's Niles Planquet. And he's been doing it for close to 20 years, and he's got a really good mind for it. And he's another guy that we can bounce a lot of ideas off of, and he gives us feedback. There's so many things, or there's so many people that are involved with SWE that are going to help us succeed and help us grow. So I'm really happy to be a part of the company, even though I'm not particularly happy with the way I've been treated in the company. But I see it as a huge stepping stone for a lot of us, and just keep growing from here for sure.
Now, I'm not that familiar with Texas geography. I know Greenville is near Dallas. Is it true you're based near Fort Worth? And,
yes, sir.
And how far do you go around Texas? Do you cover the whole state?
Just about. I think the one major metropolitan area I haven't wrestled in Texas would be El Paso, because it is so far out there in West Texas, and there's just not a whole lot of places running out in that general area. But yeah, I'm based out of Fort Worth. Travel to San Antonio, to Houston, all the way down to Laredo to wrestle, all the way up to Amarillo. So there's a lot of ground to cover in Texas, and you can be in the car for a very long time, getting from point A to point B. But it's a lot of fun. I enjoy road trips, so it's not a big deal. It's not a huge deal for me to get in a car and say, hey, let's drive 7 hours to a show. I'm down with it. Love it.
Mitch Miller brings up Amarillo's down the road from the Double Cross Ranch. Of course, have you ever run into Terry Funk, one of the all-time greats?
Yeah, I actually wrestled on was the Terry Funk's tailgate party before WrestleMania here in Dallas. So it would be WrestleMania 32, I believe. But it was a morning show before Mania actually took place, and Terry Funk was the big name, a part of that, and the show was named after Terry. So I ran into him the night before and spoke with him for a little bit, and then we did the show the next day. So really cool getting to meet Terry and getting to wrestle in front of Terry as well.
What were your thoughts on the West Texas Rednecks in WCW?
Rap. That might have been one of my favorite gimmicks, because it was so bad. It was the West Texas Rednecks thing. So bad, but I loved it because it was pure.
Yeah, it's one of those things that they really should have went with, but they killed the gimmick off.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
There's been some fans on here that want to know if you had the choice, what company would you want to go to? WWE, AEW, New Japan? I'm going to guess not Impact or Ring of Honor. Maybe if you had the opportunity, but they're not going to be top of your list probably.
Well, honestly, I think I would welcome any opportunity, to be honest with you. It's wherever you're going, you're able to showcase what you can do in front of a larger amount of fans. You take it. I've got friends of mine that are in Impact. I've got friends of mine that are in AEW. I've got friends in WWE. So wherever I would potentially go, I'd be with friends, and that'd be really cool. But I think, my biggest goal getting into wrestling was to try to make it to Japan. I would love to wrestle in Japan, just because that's where my favorites really made names for themselves. Vader, Bam Bam, folks like that. that's who I try to emulate, and I would love to be able to go and do what they did and wrestle over there. So I think Japan is the biggest goal for me. I would welcome that with open arms if I were able to get the opportunity to do that. So, but anywhere, honestly, if you're able to go make a living, go make a living. But Japan is probably at the top of my list.
And speaking of Impact, Jazz is apparently already getting back in the ring. Her retirement didn't last that long.
I did not hear that.
Yeah, she just posted it before I started this interview that she's going to be returning to Impact Wrestling soon. So,
oh, wow.
1 month retirement.
Well, when you've got a talent like Jazz, and who is a generational talent, and probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, women's wrestler of all time, and people are going to want you. And if she gets the opportunity to go to Impact and kick somebody's ass, then go do it. I love Jazz to death, and I want to see her succeed in everything she does. But I know that that retirement had been coming for a while, and then we honored her at the last event, and they actually made her the first inductee into the SWE Hall of Fame. So she may be going to Impact, but she's still a member of SWE. So a huge help backstage with the women and with the women trainees there at the Dog Pound. So, but best of luck to her, man. I love Jazz to death for sure.
Yeah, I think they do all their tapings in a block, so I don't think her going there would be any long-term thing or anything that would take her away from her SWE commitments. Somebody says Jazz is probably still in her prime, so she can still go.
There's no probably about it. Jazz can whip anybody's ass. Jazz can whip my ass. So she's definitely still in her prime, and she's probably got another 20 years left in her if she really wanted to. So Jazz is a badass for sure.
And for anyone that hasn't seen it, search Jazz the Hannibal TV. I did an interview with her recently, and she had a lot of interesting stuff to say. Have you ever had an intergender match? Speaking of Jazz, have you wrestled a girl?
Yeah, a couple times. I'm not particularly a huge fan of it. Just because I don't, and I'm probably going to get some flack for this. And I look at it, violence towards women. I'm not a huge deal. I'm not a huge guy on that. I don't like it. So it's something I try to avoid. There have been mixed tag matches and stuff like that, which I think is okay, but really getting in there and wrestling the women, I'm not a huge fan. It's not something I seek out as far as bookings go. So
you're also
a handful of occasions.
Aren't you over 300 pounds?
Say that one more time.
Are you over 300 pounds too?
I am 355.6 pounds. I weighed today, so that's where I'm sitting at, 355.
Yeah, so not really a fair fight either.
Yeah, no, it's not a fair fight in there with most men. So, I'm not one to ever to put hands on a woman. That's not my bag, man.
No, I mean, I'm not wrestling anymore, but I wouldn't do an intergender match either, unless I wasn't hitting or kicking and punching, and I was just amateur wrestling them.
It can be told the right way. The story of an intergender match can be told the right way, but if I punch you in the face, that's it. And that's including men. If I punch you in the face, that's it. You're out. So if I hit a woman, she's out. And I'm not taking anything away from the women, because women are amazing athletes. But if I punch you in the face, it's over. So there's a believability issue with a lot of that I can't get with, and it's not a knock on women. Like I said earlier, I've become a huge fan of women's wrestling because it's gotten so good. And it's just, man, intergender stuff just doesn't do it for me. So sorry if I'm pissing anybody by saying that, but that's my opinion, man. And let me have that one, I guess.
There's definitely a hardcore amount of fans that love it, and that's why those matches get huge views. But
Yeah, and man, it's got its place in the fandom, but it's not something I can really get behind and really suspend my disbelief for that type of match. It's not my deal.
And the fans on here always like to hear if the wrestlers have been in any street fights or behind the scenes fights related to wrestling or not related to wrestling.
Well, I should mention that. So how I got my name, Supertex, you can kind of put two and two together there. It's very similar to another wrestler who was in TNA, Impact, all that kind of stuff. He and I have never gotten along, and we hadn't seen each other for almost 8 years. And I was going at the time. I was going by Killer Brent McKenzie, and we wound up getting booked on the same show in Cypress, Texas, for TASW, and there was legitimate heat, and I was getting my stuff out of my gear bag, and I see him approach me out of the corner of my eye, and he was saying something. I couldn't quite make out what he was saying, and I was just there to work, man. I was there to do my match, get paid, go down the road to the next show. He finally comes up to me, and I put my hand out, and I go, "Hey, man, what's up?" And he says, "F your handshake, fat boy." And so I put my arms up, and I go, "Okay." And when I did that, he kicks me in the face. Well, he didn't kick me hard enough. And I came up out of my chair, and I punched him several times in the mouth. And that's kind of where I got my tagline, 400 pounds to punch you in the damn mouth. The locker room broke it up, and he packed his bags and he went home, and he wasn't on the show after that. And you can Google it, you can search it, because it was all over the internet a few years ago. And someone had commented on one of my posts and said, well, and I'm going to go ahead and say his name, it's Sean Hernandez, Supermex. I beat the hell out of him in a locker room, and someone had commented and said, well, his name's Supermex, you should just call yourself Supertex and just take his name. And I was like, well, hell yeah, that works. So from then on, I've been Supertex Brent McKenzie since about 2016. And yeah, that's the one dust up I've had in a locker room. And I haven't had any since. So, but there's video of me punching him in the face. The venue we were in, we were actually a part of a banquet hall as a part of this VFW, and they had security cameras. And after the show, I was hanging out in the bar, hanging out with a bunch of the old vets that are part of the VFW, and they were asking, hey, what happened to that big dude that was supposed to be on the show? And I said, well, I kicked his ass and he went home. And they go, what? I go, we got into a fight in the locker room and he packed his bags. And they said, oh, wow. And they go, one of them starts, he chimes in, he goes, there's security cameras in that locker room or the banquet hall. And I go, man, I'd love to see that footage. And the reason I wanted to see it was for my own sake, in case he tried to go to the police and say that I assaulted him unprovoked. So I had it as self-defense if it was needed. So they call a guy and he brings up his laptop and they pull up the footage, and I film it with my phone and I send it to a friend of mine who was in the wrestling business at the time, and he's the one that leaks it on Facebook, and he sent it to Wrestling Inc. and all these other wrestling websites, and Bleacher Report eventually picked it up and was posting the video. But if you can Google Hernandez and Brent McKenzie and you'll see the video for sure. But that's the one dust up I've had in a locker room, and that's how I got the name Supertex.
Very interesting. I wasn't aware of that story, and we got the story of the name at the same time. All the better.
Yes, sir.
Steven loves your DTF group that was in MPX Wrestling. He wants to know whose idea was it and how it got started.
So that started by a guy who's no longer in the wrestling business. I'm not going to do him the service of saying his name. because he had there were a lot of issues with him in the speaking out movement that happened this past June, and he doesn't deserve a mention. But he was really the originator with that. Another guy named Scott McKenzie, who was a part of NPX Wrestling, and they brought me in to be a part of the group, kind of as the muscle, I guess. And Machiko was a part of the group, and since Scott has retired and the other guy has moved on from wrestling and is living his life wherever, Machiko and I have kind of continued the name and carried the Down to Fight DTF thing with us. So it's ours now. It's mine and Machiko's. So, but it was a group in NPX. It was a lot of fun. We were a big time heel stable, and I actually had a really long run as the NPX Metroplex Wrestling NPX champion for about 5 months, and they were running weekly shows at that point, and I defended that title on every show but maybe 2 in that 5-month period. So a lot of good times at NPX, and they hold a special place in my heart. They were really my home promotion for a couple of years before SWE came along.
A lot of fans on here always like to know any good rib stories. Have you either had one played on you, or have you played one on someone behind the scenes?
Man, there were a lot of prank calls several years ago where we would call and harass other wrestlers with prank calls. I believe we called Chaz Taylor on probably 10 or 20 times, just ribbing him over the phone, impersonating other wrestlers and making him believe it was someone else. Man, of course, painting somebody's face with a Sharpie while they fall asleep on the couch without, they got their shoes on, their free game. The one guy that you can never ever rib, and because he is the devil, is Chase Stevens. There's no getting that guy. He sleeps with his eyes open. I'm convinced of it. So, tons of ribs, man. Tons of ribs. Machiko and a friend of ours who's a referee named Anthony Martosio, they like to rib me with bananas. And it's just a stupid road story. We were stopped on the way to Iowa, and Anthony has his stupid iPhone, and he's got one of those where you can put the emojis over your face, and I was not in a good mood. I was tired. I'd been driving the whole time, and was taking video of me, and he had this monkey head over my face as the emoji, and the whole time he's asking in this video, "Do you want a banana? Do you want a banana?" And I yelled at him. But from then on, it's every time a banana is mentioned or anything like that. If there's a meme with a banana in it, Anthony's sending it to me, or Machiko sending it to me. Anthony even got me a stress ball type thing where it was a freaking banana, and pretty sick of bananas at this point. So, but that's an ongoing rib with a couple of friends of mine is the banana thing. You had to be there. It's not really that funny unless you're in the group, but that's really about it on ribs. I mean, I think those are really the only things that kind of stick out. Just messing with people when they're too drunk to respond. So.
Well, it's nice to know there's some wrestlers that still go out and just don't go back to their rooms and play video games. I like to hear that people still raise some hell here and there.
Yeah, so when we were a part of NSF, there was a bar that we would go to nearly after every show. Just about, it was a bar called Denim and Diamonds, and I'm certain that we put that place out of business because I don't know if any of us ever paid for a drink there. Tip the bartender $40 and you were drinking for free for the rest of the night. And I'm certain that we were the reason they're shut down now. But we'd go there for the after party, and then we'd go back to the promoter's house for the after party, and it just insanity the whole time. So. But I've done a lot of partying in my time, and I've kind of mellowed out a bit. I like to drink Jameson pretty heavily, but no more wild parties because you can get in a lot of trouble, and it's just not worth it, to be honest with you.
There's a fan on here that wants to know if you've ever had any UFO or paranormal experiences.
Man, I am a huge paranormal, just the paranormal stuff. I love that stuff. There's a video, there's a YouTube channel called Slapped Ham that I watch all the time, and they've always got these weird paranormal or ghost videos, stuff like that. I've seen things that I can't explain, so it's made me a believer in that kind of stuff. UFOs, I think we've all seen something in the sky that we can't explain, but I believe something is out there for sure. But I'm a huge fan of the paranormal ghost stuff. Man, I can get lost on a rabbit hole of YouTube videos watching ghost stuff for sure.
Dustin wants to know if you ever worked for Fred Urban before he passed away in Odessa.
No, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to work for OSW and Fred, but Fred was a really good friend. Every time he would come to San Antonio for the Branded Outlaw shows, we would hang out there at the show and just cut up and BS. And he was such a good dude, man. He was a good dude and gave a lot of people opportunities to wrestle and had a great school. His son Trey was wrestling for a while and was trying to keep the OSW thing going. But no, unfortunately, I never did get to wrestle for Fred. But Fred was a huge part of Texas wrestling. Died when Fred passed away, and Texas wrestling in general misses Fred Urban III for sure.
Bobby wants to know what you consider your best match.
Oh man, that's a tough one. Like I said, I think one of my favorite matches is the one with Ray Rowe in the lumberjack match. But best matches I've had have probably been with Moonshine Mantell. Those I haven't had a bad match with him, so those are probably some of the best matches I've had. It's really hard to nail that one down because I've had so many matches, but I think here recently the matches with Ryan have been standout. So.
And I'll ask you this because it's in the news this week with Undertaker supposedly having his retirement ceremony on Sunday at Survivor Series. Do you think this is really the last we'll see of The Undertaker doing his walk out to the ring and that whole get up? Or do you think he's serious?
He's earned it. If that was truly the last time we see him take that slow walk to the ring and you hear the funeral march and that gong play, Undertaker has earned it. And 30 years with one company, let alone 30 years in professional wrestling, that's a long time, and that's a lot on the body to take. And he's obviously put his body through the ringer, with the multiple surgeries, the hip replacement, stuff like that. I hope that's the last time. Like, he doesn't need to wrestle anymore. There's nothing left for Undertaker to prove. He's done everything in the business that he's wanted to do, and he's definitely earned it. So it's a shame that celebration or that ceremony they did for him was not in front of a live crowd. I think that was the one thing that was missing from that whole deal. And that's something that unfortunately he didn't get to have. And you think that, I don't know, maybe when live crowds come back, there will be another celebration for him, but it's unfortunate that wasn't the way, that wasn't available to him. It was to go out and say goodbye in front of a live crowd. I think that hurt the whole deal. But he's definitely earned it for sure.
Not only did they hurt it by not doing that, but to pipe in the thank you Taker chant.
That was really awkward. It was really awkward. The thank you takes and the clap, 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 stuff like that. It was very, very, very odd. But then I guess if you do it without it, then it's equally as awkward because then there's dead silence. So it was weird to watch for sure.
Yeah, if I was in charge, I would have just had him make an appearance for the 30 years and waited to the fans, because
Yeah.
the fans would have liked to have had the chance to fly from all over the world to say a proper goodbye to. But as you said, they'll probably do it again.
I think so. If they're able to have a live crowd at WrestleMania, then I think you'll see something there. Because of course, the Survivor Series is where he debuted and all that, but he holds such a huge place with WrestleMania. Being the streak was such a huge deal, it became bigger than the title matches that were on WrestleMania. So I think if they do something for WrestleMania, it should be in front of a live crowd.
There's a fan on here that says you remind him of Ivan Koloff. Have you ever heard that before?
Once or twice I've heard that, so I think it may be the lighting and the way my brow looks right now.
Now, I know the opponent you want the most right now is Tim Storm to get that SWE Fury title. But if you could wrestle anyone from any company for a match and you already had the title, let's just say, who would it be?
So anyone? I mean, are we putting any limitations on that, or what's
anyone active, I guess, that's still active in the ring?
Let's see. Man, I wanted another match with Keith Lee. We wrestled each other several times, but we teased something back in 2017 at MPX, and not long after that, he was in Florida. He was signed, but I think Keith Lee would be the guy that I'd like to get back in the ring with and have one more match with for sure.
Now, for the fans in the Dallas area, do you want to tell them about this show, what they can expect?
Oh yeah,
coming up?
SWE Fury it's Christmas Chaos. It's going to be at the 6th Grade Center Gym in Greenville, Texas. It starts at 6 p.m. You can get your tickets at SWEFury.com. Hannibal's been plugging it here on the interview all night. They're going to do a toy drive. If you donate a toy, I think it's you get to take a picture with your favorite SWE superstar. I'm certain that I'm not one of those, so don't come asking for a picture from me. But you're going to have a lot of great talent on the show, like I said earlier. 2 WWE Hall of Famers in Teddy Long and Mark Henry, 2 former NWA World's Heavyweight Champions in Tim Storm and Jax Dane. You got former WWE Tag Team Champion Charlie Haas, former WWE star Roddy Mack, a whole host of other talent. So folks like Niles Planquet, Miranda Gordy, Kevin Sullivan, forgot to mention him, the Taskmaster, one of the greatest minds in the history of professional wrestling. And he'll be there as well. He's joining the commentary team with Bob Malden, like we mentioned earlier. A lot of talent is going to be at the show, and there's going to be a lot of great matches. I am hoping that Teddy Long finally sees the light and gives me my title match. It's been a long time coming, and I don't feel like I got what I needed or deserved at the last SWE event. That match was called out, and Teddy Long intentionally called that match out because he sent a 90-pound female referee out to try to break up 2 big bulls who were fighting each other, and we pushed her down. Teddy Long didn't call the match when we pushed the referee Alex down, who's a grown man, but he called the match when we pushed the girl. And personally, I think Teddy Long has something against me. I'm not sure what it is, but I've done everything that I can to prove to Teddy Long and the SWE Fury that I am the rightful #1 contender, and I deserve the SWE Fury Heavyweight Championship match against Tim Storm. So we'll see what happens on December 12th in Greenville, Texas at the 6th Grade Center Gym. for Christmas Chaos.
And as far as your personal social media, for anyone that wants to follow you, where can they look you up?
Yep. So Facebook, I've got it's Supertex Brent McKenzie on Facebook. If you want to follow my Instagram, it's at Brent McKenzie, and my Twitter is at the Supertex. So you can follow me on any one of those platforms. Pretty quick to answer messages if you do have a question or you want to BS and shoot the breeze with me. I'll be more than happy to chat with you. But follow me there. Follow SWE Fury TV on Twitter. Their Instagram is SWE Fury TV, and the Facebook is SWE Fury TV Wrestling Show, or Wrestling TV Show. It's a bit of a long name, but look up all those on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can visit my website, supertexonline.com. I've got a lot of my merch there. Actually, I've archived a lot of it, so I've got some new stuff coming. So be patient there. So you won't find anything in the store at this point. But I've got some new stuff coming. Working on some new designs for T-shirts and different types of merchandise. So supertexonline.com. Like I said, Brent McKenzie on Instagram, the Supertex on Twitter, and Supertex Brent McKenzie on Facebook.
And we'll be posting some videos of you in action right here on the Hannibal TV on YouTube in the coming weeks, so the fans can look forward to that. And I'll also be there covering the next SWE Fury show.
Perfect.
So,
Perfect. And I look forward to meeting you in person.
Very good. Me too. So to close this off, in case Tim Storm happens to watch this, he holds the title now of SWE Fury. What message would you want to give him to shut this interview down?
You know, I've tried everything that I can do to get under the skin of Tim Storm. I've punched him in the face. I've called him a coward. I've held up the entire show just to get face to face with Tim, and Tim is still champion. And Tim, you know damn well that your days are numbered as the SWE Fury heavyweight champion. You may have had James Beard in your back pocket. You may have Teddy Long in your back pocket protecting you. But come December 12th at SWE Fury Christmas Chaos, there's no one going to be protecting you. And whether or not they give me the title shot, I'm still going to beat your ass because you deserve it. You're one of the best champions ever. You've been a great NWA champion. You've been a great SWE Fury champion, but your time is up. And I intend to take that title from you by hook or by crook. So Tim, get ready. Get ready. Because your bags are going to go home about 10 pounds lighter on December 12th.